When a ruthless billionaire mocks a black waitress by forcing her to play the piano, he never expects her breathtaking talent to silence the room and shatter his prejudices. The scene opens in an upscale restaurant nestled in the heart of Manhattan. The ambience is elegant, with soft lighting and tasteful decor that screams wealth and exclusivity. Patrons dressed in designer suits and gowns sip on expensive champagne while waitstaff moves silently through the room, their movements practiced and precise. Among them is Maya, a young black woman whose smile hides years of struggle and resilience. Maya has worked at this restaurant for 3 years, enduring subtle microaggressions and outright discrimination from both customers and management. Despite her circumstances, she carries herself with grace and dignity, determined to provide for her family. Tonight, however, will be different. A night where her hidden talents come to light in ways no one could have anticipated. Seated at a corner table near the grand piano is Charles Whitmore, a billionaire real estate tycoon known for his arrogance and disdain for those he considers beneath him. He's surrounded by associates who laugh too loudly at his jokes and nod eagerly at his every word. Charles enjoys flaunting his power, often demanding special treatment or making unreasonable requests just to see how far people will bend to accommodate him. As dinner winds down, Charles leans back in his chair, scanning the room with a bored expression. His eyes land on Maya, who is clearing dishes from a nearby table. A cruel smirk crosses his face as an idea forms in his mind. "Excuse me," he calls out, his voice dripping with condescension. Maya turns toward him, her polite smile firmly in place, despite the knot forming in her stomach. "Yes, sir. Can I help you?" Charles gestures toward the piano. "You there, waitress. I heard someone say you play the piano. Is that true?" Maya hesitates, caught off guard by the question. She hasn't played publicly since she was a teenager, when music was her escape from the hardships of life. But now, it feels like a distant memory, buried under the weight of responsibility. "I used to play a little," she admits cautiously. "Well, tonight's your lucky night," Charles announces loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Come over here and entertain us. Let's see if you're as talented as they claim." His tone leaves no room for refusal, but Maya feels the weight of humiliation pressing down on her. This isn't a genuine request. It's a mockery, a way for him to assert dominance over her. Still, she knows better than to argue. With quiet determination, she walks over to the piano, her heart pounding. The room falls into an uneasy hush as Maya takes her seat at the piano. Her hands tremble slightly as they hover above the keys, and for a brief moment she feels exposed, like all eyes are piercing through her, judging not just her ability, but her very worth. Charles leans back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing a smug grin that seems to say, "Let's see what you've got." His friends murmur amongst themselves, some amused, others skeptical. To them, this is nothing more than entertainment, a spectacle orchestrated by their arrogant host. Maya closes her eyes, shutting out the weight of their stares. She breathes deeply, letting the familiar scent of polished wood and aged leather ground her. For years, she has kept her musical talent hidden, buried beneath the demands of survival and the monotony of her job. But now, seated before the gleaming grand piano, something stirs within her, a spark of defiance, a quiet rebellion against those who have underestimated her. Slowly, her trembling fingers find their place on the keys. The first notes emerge tentatively, soft and hesitant, like whispers testing the air. It's Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a piece she learned as a teenager during long nights spent practicing on a battered upright piano in her childhood home. As the melody unfolds, however, her touch grows surer, her confidence swelling with each passing measure. The music begins to flow effortlessly, filling the room with a haunting beauty that commands attention. The delicate arpeggios cascade like moonlight over still water, evoking emotions so raw and profound that even the most jaded patrons feel their breath catch in their throats. As Maya plays, her posture transforms. Gone is the deferential waitress who quietly served meals and endured insults without complaint. In her place sits an artist, fully immersed in her craft, pouring her soul into every note. Her body sways gently with the rhythm, her face serene yet resolute. The pain of years of hardship, the discrimination, the disrespect, the struggle to make ends meet, seems to dissolve into the music, leaving behind only strength and grace. Each chord becomes a declaration. I am more than you see. I am more than you think. Around the room, reactions vary but share a common thread of astonishment. Charles, who had intended to mock Maya, finds himself frozen in his seat, his smirk fading into wide-eyed disbelief. His companions glance nervously at one another, unsure how to process what they're witnessing. Waiters pause mid-step, plates forgotten in their hands, while diners abandon their conversations entirely. Even the clink of silverware ceases, replaced by the spellbinding resonance of the piano. For these few minutes, the opulent restaurant becomes a sanctuary of sound, where social hierarchies and prejudices momentarily fade away. When the final chord reverberates through the air, there's a heartbeat of silence, a collective holding of breath, as if no one dares to break the spell. Then, like a dam bursting, the room erupts into applause. People rise to their feet, clapping fervently, cheering, and calling out words of admiration. Strangers exchange glances filled with wonder, united by the shared experience of having witnessed something extraordinary. Some wipe away tears, moved not just by the music itself, but by the story it tells, the triumph of talent over adversity, of dignity over degradation. For Maya, the ovation is both overwhelming and affirming. She rises from the piano bench, her head held high, meeting the gaze of those around her, not with anger or resentment, but with quiet pride. She knows this moment will change things, though she doesn't yet know how. What she does know is that she has reclaimed a part of herself tonight, proving not only to others, but to herself that her worth cannot be diminished by anyone's cruelty or condescension. And as she walks away from the piano, leaving behind the stunned faces of Charles and his entourage, she carries with her the knowledge that her voice, her music, has the power to transcend barriers and inspire awe, even in the unlikeliest of places. As the applause continues to echo through the restaurant, Charles sits motionless, his arrogance replaced by a profound sense of unease. He had orchestrated this moment with malicious intent, to mock Maya, to assert his dominance, and to entertain himself at her expense. But what unfolded before him was nothing short of transformative. The music she played wasn't just technically flawless, it carried an emotional depth that resonated deeply, piercing through the walls he'd built around himself. For the first time in years, Charles feels vulnerable, stripped of the superiority complex he has worn like armor. His initial smirk now seems grotesque even to himself, a cruel relic of a mindset he can no longer justify. The realization dawns on him slowly, creeping into his consciousness like the final notes of Maya's performance. This woman, this waitress whom he dismissed as insignificant, possesses a talent so extraordinary that it commands respect and admiration from everyone present, including him. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. In his world, people like Maya exist to serve, not to shine. Yet here she is, standing tall amidst thunderous applause, embodying everything he failed to see: resilience, dignity, and brilliance. Her presence forces him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself, the biases he clings to, the privilege he abuses, and the humanity he often denies to others. Charles approaches the piano cautiously, his usual swagger replaced by uncertainty. When he speaks, his voice lacks its characteristic edge. "That was incredible," he says haltingly, searching for words that feel inadequate. I didn't know you could play like that." His admission hangs in the air between them, heavy with unspoken regret. Maya meets his gaze steadily, her expression calm but unwavering. She doesn't offer forgiveness because it isn't hers to give. Not yet, but she does respond with quiet authority. "There's a lot you don't know about me, Mr. Whitmore," she says, her tone measured yet firm. "And maybe next time, instead of assuming the worst about someone, you'll take the time to learn." Her words strike a chord within him, cutting deeper than any insult ever could. They are not angry or vindictive, but rather a call to accountability, a reminder that his assumptions have consequences, ones that ripple far beyond this single encounter. Charles feels the weight of her statements settle over him, forcing him to reckon with the harm he has caused not only tonight but throughout his life. In the days that follow, Charles finds himself haunted by Maya's performance and her words. He replays the scene in his mind repeatedly, dissecting every note and every glance, trying to understand how he could have been so blind. For decades, he has moved through the world believing himself superior, viewing those beneath him as tools to be used or ignored. But Maya shattered that illusion with her artistry and poise, exposing the fragility of his self-perception. He begins to see parallels between his behavior toward her and the countless other times he has dismissed or demeaned people based on their race, class, or position. Each memory stirs a mixture of guilt and shame, compelling him to act. Determined to make amends, Charles starts volunteering at community centers in underserved neighborhoods. At first, his efforts feel clumsy and insincere, as though he's merely performing charity for redemption. But over time, he begins to listen more intently to the stories of young artists struggling to find opportunities, to the parents working multiple jobs to provide for their families, to the voices of those who have long been silenced. Through these interactions, he learns humility, recognizing that true change requires more than financial contributions. It demands empathy, understanding, and a willingness to dismantle the systems of privilege he has benefited from. While Charles undergoes this internal transformation, Maya remains focused on her own journey. She refuses to let his apology, or his newfound interest in social justice, define her path forward. Instead, she channels her energy into pursuing her dreams, leveraging the attention her performance brought to secure scholarships and opportunities she once thought were out of reach. As she steps onto stages far grander than the restaurant where she worked, she carries with her the lessons of that night, that her worth cannot be dictated by anyone else, and that her talent is a gift meant to inspire, not to endure mockery. For both Maya and Charles, the realization becomes a turning point, a catalyst for growth and reflection. Though their paths diverge after that fateful evening, the impact of their encounter lingers, shaping the choices they make and the lives they touch. And while Charles may never fully undo the damage he inflicted, his effort to do better serves as a testament to the power of art and of one person's courage to spark meaningful change. The days following Maya's breathtaking performance at the restaurant unfold like ripples in a pond, spreading far beyond the confines of that opulent dining room. News of her unexpected triumph travels quickly, carried by patrons who witnessed the event and couldn't stop talking about it. A local journalist, intrigued by the story of a waitress whose hidden talent silenced an entire room, including one of New York City's most notorious billionaires, reaches out to interview Maya. Her humility and grace during the conversation only deepen the public's admiration for her. The resulting article goes viral, painting Maya not just as a talented musician, but as a symbol of resilience and perseverance. Readers are captivated by her journey. A young black woman from humble beginnings, working tirelessly to support her family while keeping her passion for music alive, despite years of hardship. As the article gains traction, opportunities begin pouring in from all directions. Prestigious music schools offer her full scholarships, eager to nurture her prodigious talent. Renowned concert halls invite her to perform, recognizing the unique blend of technical mastery and emotional depth she brings to her craft. Even record labels express interest, envisioning her as a fresh voice in classical crossover music, a genre where tradition meets innovation. For Maya, these offers represent more than career advancement. They signify validation of her worth, proof that her dreams were never too big or out of reach. She carefully weighs each opportunity, choosing those that align with her vision of using music to inspire and uplift others. Meanwhile, Charles undergoes his own transformation, though it remains largely private. Haunted by the memory of Maya's performance and her pointed words, he begins attending workshops on racial equity and unconscious bias. He reads books and listens to podcasts that challenge his worldview, forcing him to confront the ways he has perpetuated inequality throughout his life. At first, his efforts feel awkward and forced, like trying to fit into shoes that don't quite belong to him. But over time, he starts engaging more authentically, volunteering at community centers and mentoring underprivileged youth interested in the arts. One of his proudest initiatives is funding a scholarship program for aspiring musicians from marginalized communities, ensuring that talents like Maya's aren't overlooked due to lack of resources or opportunity. Despite their vastly different trajectories, Maya and Charles remain connected through the shared experience of that transformative night. Though they rarely cross paths after the restaurant incident, Charles occasionally follows updates about Maya's career, marveling at how far she has come. Meanwhile, Maya acknowledges Charles' attempts at redemption without letting them overshadow her achievements. She understands that his actions won't undo the harm he caused, not to her, nor to countless others. But she also recognizes that genuine change begins with accountability. On the opening night of her debut performance at Carnegie Hall, Maya stands backstage, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. The theater buzzes with anticipation, filled with people eager to witness the phenomenon that began in a Manhattan restaurant months earlier. As she steps onto the stage, bathed in spotlight, the audience erupts into applause, a sound both familiar and surreal. Before playing her first piece, she pauses to address the crowd. "Tonight," she says, her voice steady and clear, "I dedicate this concert to all the dreamers who refuse to let the world dim their light. To anyone who has ever been told they're not enough, this is for you." Her words resonate deeply, drawing cheers and tears from the audience. When she finally sits at the piano and begins to play, the music speaks louder than any speech ever could. It carries echoes of her struggles, her triumphs, and her unyielding hope for a better future, not just for herself, but for everyone fighting to be seen and heard. By the end of the evening, critics hail her as a rising star, praising not only her virtuosity, but also her ability to connect with listeners on a profoundly human level. In the weeks and months that follow, Maya continues to rise in prominence, using her platform to advocate for greater diversity in classical music and other traditionally exclusive fields. She mentors young artists, encouraging them to embrace their uniqueness and break free from societal constraints. Charles, meanwhile, dedicates himself to dismantling systemic barriers, leveraging his wealth and influence to create spaces where marginalized voices can thrive. While their lives remain separate, their stories intertwine in powerful ways, serving as reminders of the potential for growth and redemption, even in the face of cruelty and prejudice. Ultimately, the aftermath of that fateful night becomes a testament to the enduring power of art and humanity. For Maya, it marks the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by purpose and possibility. For Charles, it represents a chance to rewrite his legacy, turning past wrongs into opportunities for good. And for everyone who hears her story, it serves as an inspiration, a reminder that even in moments of darkness, there is always the potential for light to shine through.